Hi, my name's Clare. I'm sharing some of my thoughts and experiences from my current cancer journey. I'm two-thirds of the way through what will be a year treatment plan from the medical perspective. Well, not that I'm doing everything, but I'm you know making my decisions as I go along with that. But I'm under their care for a year. But of course, I know that the care started with myself right from the time that I even thought that I had an imbalance, as in when I felt the lump. My journey started then, and it will carry on for the rest of my life. So I think that's significant. I'm choosing to have a little bit of medical treatment during the first year of what will now my life has changed, and it's interesting because when I first got my diagnosis, or actually I kind of knew I had it at my triple test. So I went through then the most challenging few days of having the disturbance of the mind then, and then needing to pull myself back to centre. So when I actually got my diagnosis, I was pretty prepared. I was very balanced, and I had a lot of questions, and I'd recorded the questions, and I went in quiet because I kind of knew it was coming. I wasn't surprised that it came, but the triple test is where I could tell, and I didn't think I had it up until that point. So that was the shock. Mouth went dry, and my mind started going a bit wild. And it's interesting because one of the earlier thoughts that I had was, that's it, your life changed forever. Because I've been reading books on natural health and restoring health, and Louise Hay and You Can Heal Your Life, and all of those since my early 20s. I've been on a spiritual path for a very long time. So, I'm very, very well aware of what you can do to support your body through a diagnosis like this. But it's interesting that the tone of the voice was, that's it, your life's changed forever. As if to say, oh no, you're never going to be able to go out and drink again, and you're never going to be able to. Whereas now, it's like, oh, my life's changed forever. It's like, I feel so more empowered. I feel in my truth. I feel liberated. I feel more human. I feel more connected. I feel more alive. I feel so positive for the future. I was already in a good place before the diagnosis, but not only this has taken me on another level, really spiritually, and actually it's made me see that I was holding on to some stuff that I didn't think I was holding on to, and it's illuminated some patterns and some scars that I wasn't aware of. So it's really taken me forward in that way. And now, with regards to the fact that I've been living a very clean lifestyle for 8 months, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything at all. I don't miss, the first few months, and my mind would wander to, I hope it would be so nice to go to a restaurant, choose whatever I want off the menu. Whereas now, my choice would be to have something that's really healthy because my body's asking for it, because I'm living a clean lifestyle. And I'm not saying I'm never ever going to have X, Y, or Z again. But right now, I'm really happy with what I'm doing, where I'm at, and I'm really enjoying it. So just an example of how that inner voice can go from my life's never going to be the same again to my life's never going to be the same again. So what tone do you want? What tone are you going to have in your head? You can choose. It's up to you. So there's the empowerment right there. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and in fact that touches on it, is self-love. So I did a talk on self-love about just over a year ago, probably even 3 or 4 months ago, and talked about, in terms of yoga teacher training, Pilates teacher training, which is my job, my business. And I obviously went through what we would normally consider like balancing when you're teaching, do the same amount on the right as on the left, and protecting your voice, rest breaks, and living a balanced life, and carving time out of your day for you. So when you're teaching, you're giving a lot, and you are thinking about other people in your class, but are you still protecting yourself, to prevent injuries, self-harm, and honouring your own practice, so that you're not rushed off your feet teaching others so much that then your own practice slips. All these different things. But now I've had quite quite a significant spiritual awakening a fortnight ago, I can see that self-care is actually, it's deeper than that. Self-love. Self-care and self-love are probably two slightly different things, but self-love, when you are connected to Source, then I think you are in a place of self-love. That gives you your self-love. When you realise that God is in you and you're in God, and when I talk about God, I talk about universe, vibrational frequency, Source, nature, whatever resonates with you, infinite intelligence. When you are connected to that, so my spiritual awakening was that I saw myself in that vibrational frequency now. So I can almost see myself skipping around now as I'm talking to you. So where I always understood that God was within me, and when I go into deep meditation, I see the expansiveness and I can tune into that, and inner wisdom and intuition can come from that. And I also knew that whenever you look, had the feeling of expansiveness when you're looking out in nature, sunsets, the moon, the stars, the vastness of life, and that we are it and it is us, and we're all interconnected and we're all breathing one breath, and everything's recycled, so we're all sharing the same particles. So I always understood and felt that and sensed that. But when I saw myself as I am now in that sent me on a slightly different path, or illuminated it even more, let's just say. Because when you're connecting to God, you're connecting to yourself, and you're connecting to your true self, and you're connecting to your own higher power. You are your higher power. This is my experience I'm sharing. I saw myself like with God, if you like, outside of myself. Whereas I'd seen it inside, this was outside. So when you talk about higher self, it's you. You're your own guide. I knew I was my own guide within, but I'm also my own guide without. I'm there. I am in the infinite stillness now, as well as trying to tune into it. So when you're connected to that and you see that, so I can see myself as being my own cheerleader. I can see myself skipping around, and then that gives me the vision of life here on our earthly plane being a playground that we're playing in. So we're not meant to be bogged down with stress and worry and anxiety and worrying about small little intricate things. This is the spiritual teachings that we come across. Life's for playing, life's for enjoying, life's for experiencing. So it takes us back to the concept that we're not our bodies. Our bodies are vehicles that we use through which to experience life. So when we're born, our spirit comes down into a physical body, and the spirit's here to evolve, and that's what we're. So when we we look at negative things on the path. Actually, if our spirit's evolving, it's a very positive thing. So for me, my cancer is a very positive, empowering, freeing experience, and that's my choice. I'm choosing to make it that. For other people, it might not be. But that's my choice, or that's my experience, actually. It wasn't even, I didn't sit down to make that choice. It's just been my experience. But because of other things I've been through that's helped my spirit to evolve, I wouldn't be dealing with a cancer like this if I hadn't have been through other traumas. So we can see that that's where the saying comes, that the obstacles aren't along the path. The obstacles are the path to higher self understanding. Of self-realization, or seeing reality for what it is. So when I had this image, this visualization of me looking at myself, so the spirit comes down. My spirit has come down. This is how I'm seeing it now. My spirit's come down into this physical body that I've got, which isn't my body. It's a body that I'm borrowing to experience life and for my spirit to evolve. But I'm still up there as well at the same time. So I kind of understood that the spirit lives after, it's like the body dies, the mind dies, but the spirit lives. And that goes with you along with your karma, if you're from Buddhism. And if you haven't repented, then sin, and that's a Christian faith. So sin is really when you project unconscious behaviour onto somebody else. This is my understanding. For me that is sin. And in yoga, you're trying to make your samskaras, your subconscious conditioning, conscious. So they're the same thing, but just taught in different ways. So when you can fully, so when you realise that you're up there at the same time, that's what I don't think I'd maybe fully realised. So I thought you'd come down and then you go back again, but actually you're still there all the time. So at the same time as living our earthly life right now, we're also, whether you call it heaven, but we're also in the universe there with God, with Source now. And we can connect with that at any time we like. And when you connect to that, your own higher self, then you're in your alignment. Then you're in your personal power. Because in that moment, you realise that all of the projections that we've had put on us, all of the stories, all of the values, the way, the morals, the ethics, how you should live your life, all of those become null and void because you can actually access your own source to determine what your truth is and what's in your alignment and what your morals and your values and your ethics are. And of course, if you're in alignment, they are going to be for the greater good of all. You're going to treat people with respect. You're going to be kind. You're awake. I mean, Buddha means the awakened one. You're awake to your own subconscious patterning, that when you're not awake, that's when you project. So whether you're the Christian faith is that you sin when you project, and whether you're projecting your samskaras, or whether you're asleep according to Buddha and and if you're asleep, you must be projecting because you're not awake. So, the spiritual path is to notice when we fall off the path, and then you repent or you recognise it. So you are becoming conscious of, and that's where most people, most people on a spiritual path are at that. It's not that we never come off the path, because we all do, because we're human. That's the human part of us that comes off the path. But then you recognise that. So you're making the unconscious conscious and coming back to the path. And it's how quickly do you come back to the path? How often do you come off the path? And the more you are along your spiritual path, the less often you come off it, and there's more distance in between, and you're coming back to your centre. But when I had this direct there, that's how. But when you are directly linked to your source, that becomes null and void, because if you're tuning into it. I'm not saying, obviously we still might come off the path, but when you're tuning into source and you're in your power and you're in your centre and you're in your alignment, then all the samskaras that you might not even know you've got, they go. They've gone. They've been dealt with. And that is what's been so powerful for me, that illumination. Because then you don't have to spend ages working on stuff. Obviously you meditate, connect to source, but if you're connected to source, you don't really even need to meditate, because it's just there all the time. It's like a pathway's been opened, and now it's opened, and you can go direct, or it's just with you. You're just kind of at one with it. So then, of course, all the practices I've been doing, which include affirmations, gratitude meditations, chakra meditations, meditating, Mysore practice very regularly for 5 years. All of those practices have influenced this awakening that I've had. They've all led me here. But when you've had that realisation, then all those practices, of course, you want to stay on that path, so they're all really valid, but there's not a need for them, because you're connected to source now. And so that's that's liberation, that's freedom, because then the stories that I've been passed on from my mum and dad, or that might have not been very helpful for me. For me, it was about, I was definitely found it difficult to make decisions. What did I think? I went with the flow. I was a people pleaser. I didn't like the thought of anybody not agreeing with me, or being in disagreement. I was a peacemaker. So, but then by doing that, I would perhaps give over my personal power, which I didn't realise, but I can see that now. So when you're connected to your source, you are your own higher power. That's you. So when you're talking about self-love, then that's your love. That's you loving you when you're in your personal power. So that's your third chakra, Manipura. It's when you're connected to your source, it's a bit like you're your own parent. So it's no incident that they call the father, the son. It's so how would you treat your child? You love them unconditionally. You want to put your arms around them. You have compassion towards them. You tell them things are okay. So when you are connected to your source, you're your own parent. So then that love you have for your child, you have for yourself. That's what I've realised about what is actually self-love. So when we're talking, it comes up in poetry and it comes up in quotes, and we say it a lot during yoga about self-love. Caring for oneself, self-care is important. That is part of self-love. But when you're when you're connected to source and yourself as a higher self, as a higher power, then you are loving yourself like you would love your own child, when unconditionally, when you don't have any samskaras, when you're not carrying the projections that your parents have carried on to you. I'm right, you're wrong, you must do as I'm told. So that all that sort of controlling aspect of parenting that's been handed down over the years, that goes. Because actually, if you love somebody, like this is where, when we talk about, this is about what's coming from the Bible. When you love somebody unconditionally, you give them free will, you let them learn from their own mistakes. You're there for them all the time. You're always going to love them no matter what. You're going to forgive them, but you give them room to grow. Room to grow. That's that. And if you're controlling something or somebody too much, you're not giving them room to grow. So when you are connected to your source, you can, then it feels like you love yourself like you would love your own child, when you can be unconditional with your love. It's unconditional. So I think that was my realization, is that I'm in God and God is in me. I already knew that. I can tune into the wisdom of source, of God. I was already doing that. But at the same time, myself, my spiritual self is also with God now, out there as well as being in here. It's like my fan club. And I can tune into that and, feel carried. So now I'm never alone. I don't feel like I'm ever alone. I know I didn't anyway, because I was already tuning in on those other levels. So all these spiritual practices are wonderful. But this for me has just been an epiphany, I guess. Pieces it all together, it illuminates it more, and it puts a different spin on self-love for me. So it's not about going and getting your hair cut to make yourself feel good, although that might make you feel nice. It's bigger than that. It's vaster than that. It's more profound than that. It's, because really, when you're tuned into that source, it doesn't actually matter what your hair looks like. And it doesn't really matter what you wear. But when you do go out and if you make yourself look nice to go out, you know that that's your human self, and it's temporary. You know that, but you don't need to do that. It doesn't matter if you don't. It just really doesn't matter if you don't. That's when you're connected to source, because you know that your value comes from, obviously, the vastness within. But it comes from tuning into your source and your higher power, and then nothing else matters. Because why do we think we need to look good? Where does that come from? That comes from being conditioned from a young age that we want to look like the pop stars, and we want to look like the movie stars, and we want to look like the influencers now on Instagram, and it's good to have big bums, or it's good to have big boobs, or whatever's in fashion at the time. But actually, none of that is to do with, obviously some of that moves us away from self-love into self-sabotage, but when you're connected to source, you can dip in and out of that. You can still enjoy some of those, if it's in your alignment, like going and get your hair cut and make yourself feel nice and going out with your friends and wearing a nice outfit. But actually, none of that, it's not significant. And it is temporary, and it doesn't matter. And when you're in that balance, nothing can affect you. Well, from me and my experience so far, nothing can affect you negatively. And if you link that back to the cancer diagnosis, I started tamoxifen nearly 2 months ago, and I haven't had any side effects. And again, I did. That was one of my mantras before. I was sort of saying, I'll just take one and see. So I didn't, and let my body tell me. And I haven't had any side effects. I'm taking a DIM supplement, and alongside it, And I'm on Essiac tea, which is also, they're all helping to inhibit the estrogen levels, or the use of estrogen. But because I feel great on it, I'm going to keep taking it. But if I didn't, then I'd evaluate and I'd see what was in my alignment. But being in my personal power helps balance everything. So this is where now I don't probably need what I'm taking, because when you're in that alignment, everything in your body is in balance, and that has come from me being clean and having a very clean lifestyle. I believe that's then body and mind are inextricably linked. So the cleaner your body, the clearer your mind, the more clarity you have. So that's probably influenced my epiphany, which has also been helped from all the other work I've done over the years and practices that I have. But when you're in your alignment, you're vibrating at different, you're raising your vibrations, you're raising your frequency, and that's healing. So perhaps, I'm not getting side effects because I'm in my alignment and my cells are already healed, and so therefore, the medication side is kind of just, my body's not really being affected by it that much. Who knows? But I haven't had a period since September, and we're now in May. So the chance that my menopause has been triggered. I'm on tamoxifen, which is a hormone therapy, which is reported for a lot of women to get a lot of side effects. And I'm still on an immunotherapy and a low dose chemo, and I'm on my last round of radiotherapy today. And I feel great, genuinely. I feel alive. I feel free. And I feel that awakening is what's really, it's just taken me again to another level. I was already on a level, it's just taken it up another notch. And I guess, I'm guessing that's why I feel so emotionally balanced. Because in theory, when you've got that amount of stuff going on in your body, from menopause is a big change that women go through, obviously, without it being through a cancer diagnosis. Then I've got my cancer diagnosis, then I've got the hormone therapy, plus the other medications, plus I'm now navigating COVID and my business isn't making any money, but I feel so aligned. So none of those, I'm sharing that with you now, just as an example of how outer events, situations don't need to impact your inner field when you're in alignment. And that's been my epiphany, and that hasn't always been the case. So, and that's self-love for me. That's how I'm experiencing it now. So self-love is when you're in real balance, when you're really connected to yourself and you're in balance, that creates a resilience, a huge resilience, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So that the chances of you then being harmed are diminished. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but I think if it does happen, you recognise that you will come out of your connection to source very quickly and pull yourself back. So we can all get caught out still, and that's why we have to practice. Give us our daily bread, a daily practice, a daily spiritual practice, because that will keep you on the path. But I think once you've had that realisation of that you're your higher self, you're your higher power, and you're connected to that, it's like it's just more natural. It's just there. Yeah. So I hope that's been helpful for some listeners of this. And any form of self-care is a journey towards self-love. So keep doing it. You have got time. I think that's one of the biggest things we tell ourselves, isn't it? I haven't got time. You have got time. I've had to do that since when I was going through my divorce. I had to have time to do some time out. My diagnosis could have been a different story if I hadn't. So self-care is hugely significant and important. But when you tune in and become connected to your own, when you see yourself as your own source and your own higher power, moves you from self-care to self-love, I think, and really allows you to love yourself unconditionally as you would your child. Without any conditions. And unconditional, that's another conversation. How powerful to love unconditionally, and how bloody hard. Just some more reflections and thoughts that might help other people on wherever you are on your journey, whatever journey that may be. And sending you so much love, unconditional love.